And the truth is, brother, staccato, homie, they're in the rear view, right? I'm chasing down Atlas and trying to beat them. That's my competition.
Welcome back to Whiskey and Windage, the 2A podcast for the people, by the people. I'm your host, Mike, joined by my co-hosts, Adam and Matt. Adam, how we doing tonight, brother?
Good, man. It's been a busy day, but a good day, so no complaints here.
Absolutely, man. Matt, how you doing and who we got today?
Dude, I'm doing pretty good. You know, I love my Sundays. I get to sit down with my boys, do my favorite show. I'm really excited about today's guest. This is somebody's product we've been creeping on a bit. We finally got to put our hands on them at SHOT Show this year, and we've been talking ever since. We're really happy to have Paul. He is the president and co-owner over at OA Defense. Paul, welcome to Whiskey and Windage, brother.
Guys, thank you for having me. I'm super stoked to be here. Let's get it going.
Let's go.
And I think you said we're popping that the first podcast.
It's a case of beer or a bottle of bourbon, whatever you want to call it. I generally don't do these, but the team was like, "Hey, man, these are your people. Let's sit down and talk."
Heck yeah.
Man, well, I don't know how much did that cost us for them to say, Adam? You know.
Oh, we'll talk about that later. Don't worry, we'll talk about that later.
All right, that's fine. The funds will be wired. We promise, and we're good for it.
So, Paul, I'm sure a lot of our listeners know exactly who you guys are, but there's probably some people out there in the 2A world who haven't heard of OA Defense or are aware of what you guys do. Give us just a little backstory of how you got started and what it is that you guys make for the industry.
So OA Defense makes the 2311 pistol, and it is the true story of a couple of bros sitting around at a table at a bar going, man, we should make this, that, and the other. And the real genesis or concept of the gun was, if you're a young law enforcement officer or a young soldier that needs an everyday carry gun, but wants to compete, and maybe your paycheck doesn't give you this all-around gun to do both with. And most pistols out there are not made to do both. It was, how do we do that? How do we make it faster and flatter? How do we make it reliable? And how do we make it affordable? And oh, by the way, what are some things we can do to set us apart? So we run off of 320 pattern magazines, right? So you can drop in a SIG 320 mag. That's what I use in my full size sometimes. It comes with almost all the optic plates you would need. If you're going to run an acro, you just got to let us know and we'll put it in the notes and get you taken care of. They are, granted, I'm a little biased, but they're about as fast and as flat as you can possibly be in something that we will absolutely go with you. If we're on the range, I'll say, hey, throw it in the mud, bury it in the sand, drop it down in the creek, and we'll pull it up and we will still run that gun.
Dude, that's badass. When did you guys start OA Defense? What year was that?
So that was about 3 years ago. There's 4 of them that originally started it, for what we'll call the original 4, the brains that came in. And they had the idea and the tooling and birthed what was the original SHOT Show experience, right? So the original prototypes that came to SHOT Show, I was, at that point, was just kind of a consultant to the company. And I'd actually been hired to go down there and poo-poo, basically shit all over the gun. So I fly out to Dayton, we go to the range, it's freezing cold, and they start running like a dream. And I was like, damn, like I would actually carry that every day. And so through that, the company grew, it took on some life, it took on some growing pains. And then about a year ago, Mr. Bennett, who's the chairman of the owners group, tapped me and was like, hey man, we need you to come in. We need kind of that next level experience of both leadership and what the 2A community is looking for. Um, and that kind of brings us up to now, right? Like I'm super fortunate. I live outside of Bragg, so I've got no shortage of quality opinions, whether I like them or not. They're coming at me every day.
So what then? Okay, so why 2311?
Um, because it's 300. I tell people it's 300 more betters than a 2011.
I love it. It's 300
Um,
more betters.
300 more betters, but no, really, it's just kind of a homage to it. It does run off of a 1911 double stack frame, but there is that 320 style magazine in there, and so that's kind of where the three comes from. It's just, hey man, like let's be real about who we are. We are innovative, but we are coming off of a product that any soldier can go into the supply closet or team room and grab a handful of magazines and he's set. Right? Most law enforcement officers out there,
Yeah.
same thing. And even if you can't, but it's a $35 magazine's a hell of a lot better than a $150 magazine.
Yeah.
Somebody should tell Adam he's muted.
Hey, Adam.
My bad, guys.
We'll cut that part out. It's fine.
We'll
So
cut
three
that
years
part out.
ago, 3 years ago, when you guys came out at SHOT Show, you guys were the buzz. Like that year, that gun was the huge buzz, and the magazine was part of it. But my question is, I've been so curious, why SIG? Why not Glock? Why not M&P? Because all you can make the argument saying there's just so many Glock mags out there, there's just so many M&P mags. But what was truly the decision or the deciding factor for SIG mags?
I think the true deciding factor was that SIG had just won the big Army contract. Relative to time and space, that they were infilling into the Army with the big contract, and nobody had done that yet, right? You still have a platypus out there. You still have Zev and some other guys that are doing great stuff with other style magazines, but at that time, nobody was doing a 320 style magazine.
Right.
No, and that makes sense. And it's an all metal mag. I mean, I'm a SIG and Glock guy. I shoot both, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have a full metal mag. And people say Glock mags are cheaper, but I would still rather have an all metal mag than the plastic mag.
Yeah, and I think all of us have, at some point in our lives, we have trusted our lives, or our buddies' lives, or our families' lives, to a Glock and a Glock magazine. You'll never hear me talk bad about a Glock, right? I'll talk some trash about some other companies, but you'll never hear me talk bad about Glock. But again, at that time, right, like there was this long-term plan, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but we have moved where Magpul now makes our OEM magazine. So when you buy a gun now, it comes with Magpul magazines, and they are, I mean, they're legit tough magazines, and some people don't like Glocks. I don't. If I'm going to shoot fast, or let's go with this. If I'm going to teach somebody new to pistols how to shoot, then a 1911 style framed vehicle is what I want to use, especially when it's fully ambidextrous and it's got gas pedals on there that automatically make your fingers and thumbs go where they're supposed to.
Yes.
I think there's something to be said too about manufacturers. Like for a long time, it was every manufacturer, every line of new gun that they came out with had its own magazine style, and it makes it really tough, especially as a consumer. Of like, okay, I've got a couple of different guns, they all take different magazines, nothing is compatible, and it's also, I would imagine, on a manufacturer, kind of tough to be making new designs for a magazine every time they want to build a gun. And so to be able to take a magazine that's like, it's proven strength, proven reliability, proven capacity, like it checks all those boxes. Okay, now let's design a firearm that can feed off of this device that we already know to be strong and reliable. So I think, is it unique? It's uncommon, I would think, to find a double stack 1911 that feeds off a 320 mag. but I think it's a good idea too.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you gone to the range with the homies and at least one homie has the wrong mags in his bag?
It's happened. Yeah.
It happens.
I've
Yeah,
taken the wrong
it,
mags.
it happens. So it's, again, like the original intent and focus was for somebody that was interested in shooting sports to have a financially easier segue to get to the top tier quick. And I would absolutely say I will take my best shooters against anybody else in the industry's best shooters and run our guns head to head.
Hell yeah. Well, I do want to talk about the 2311, 2011. I'm going to call them double stack. Um, I do want to talk about the double stack and the transformation of the 1911. Um, Once the double stack concept came out, manufacturers of these double stacks, I'll classify them into three categories. I'm going to say you got the production quality guys. We'll
Mm-hmm.
call that zero to, bare minimal hand fitment at all. Then we'll call semi-custom guys, I don't know, companies that do 50% or less. And then you've got full-on custom fitting. When you guys make your 2311s, what, based off of that being production, semi-custom or full custom, what would you guys fall under?
I would I would say we'll call it the anomaly of a 90% custom gun.
Okay.
Um, and the reason being is that it is ambidextrous, so it's not like you're going to get your only left-sided or only right-sided gun. The entire gun is ambidextrous, right?
Right.
Um, but everything is made, just about everything is made in shop. Our frames and slides are made right there in Dayton, Nevada. They're lapped inside the shop before they ever go out to coating. Um, One of the very few parts, and we are very proud to say, like, hey, we've moved away from the day of MIM. And I
Mm,
don't care who you are,
thank
any new
God.
company starts with MIM parts, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's just a part of the growing pains. Um, but we've moved past that. We've been very fortunate to have a team of rock solid, badass manufacturing producers, armorers, coders, shippers, the whole shebang out there in Nevada. So our guns are lapped, they're stoned into place, they're hand fit. They go out, they get coated with a DLC coating, and then they come back, and from there you get split. You're either going to get painted or you're getting put back together, where they're going to get QC'd again, and we don't do any wiggle, right? So like no matter how hard I try, I can't wiggle that. And the last thing that I would say that makes ours custom is if you the customer buy that gun and you're like, hey man, for whatever reason, and it happens, I don't care if you're our arch nemesis, if you're us, if you're somebody else like Glock, where they're producing 100,000 guns at a time. um, you're gonna have some issues, right? Like it's nothing can be 100% perfect. So if you're that shooter and you've got that gun, you're like, hey man, like it's not feeding the way it's supposed to. I promise you, if you contact the team or you hop on the 2311 enthusiast group page and
Right.
you're like, hey, here's the issue I have. Don't be surprised if it's actually me or Dave, who's the VP of sales and marketing, that are the ones interacting with you going, hey man, if you're unhappy with that gun, send it back. We'll get you a new one. Right. Like the whole point of this is that you've got to be completely satisfied as a customer, and you've got to understand your gun, right? Because the guns are tight the way they are, you have to hold it like a man when you shoot. You can't lip wrist it. It won't cycle. And if you buy a threaded barrel, right? I can't take my threaded barrel off of my gun and drop it into Adam's gun because they're
Mm,
tuned out, right? So these things are completely tuned, and there is no barrel swapping. When you buy a threaded barrel gun from us, it's going to come with the regular ported barrel and the threaded barrel, so you have the option to switch back and forth. But you're just not going to be able to swap out with your buddy. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, but that definitely falls into that, full custom setup. There's
Yeah,
no drop-in barrels, there's no drop in this, that, and the other. I mean, yeah, I guess you could push some sights out and put some new sights on it, but I mean, you can do that with anything.
right.
But it's I think that's interesting because, you know, Adam, we talk about this all the time. It seems like double stacks are the new fad.
Yeah.
And everybody's coming out with them. And Adam, you've been looking at them lately. Hey,
Sorry, guys. No, I've done a lot of research on the double stacks and kind of decided what I want to go with, and it was great to actually be at Chacho this year and handle the 2311. Were you guys at the range day or no? 'Cause we went to another range day. But were you guys at the industry range day?
Yeah, so we were at the range day, and it was like range day is nerve wracking, right? Because
Yeah.
if one gun goes down, that's all anybody's going to talk about.
Hmm.
We put 4 guns on the line. We had about 20,000 rounds go through and did not have a single malfunction the whole day.
hell yeah.
Lord.
Yeah, so bro, it was big steak dinner that night, right? Like it that's where it starts. You know, you talk to people, and we had the brand new elites out there. I don't know if you got to touch those and
I
feel that
did.
grip on
I
there.
Oh,
I
that grip
did.
is gnarly. That's a
Man,
gnarly
that's
grip.
a knurled grip, man. That
Yeah.
thing is aggressive. I liked it.
Yeah, it's and it's so funny. You talk to people. So Johnny Moffat, who is our VP of training and development, he designed that grip like down to each little niche with our engineers. And so I'm with Johnny, right? Like I want to almost lose the skin on my hand. And then you'll run into some guy who's like, no, that's too aggressive for me. I'm like, sweet, we got these polymers that you can stipple out however you want them done, man.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that thing is a tack driving fool.
So with that, all this custom work, the craftsmanship, I can go on your website right now and just buy one and get one. What I can have for my FFL in what, a week?
Yeah. Let's say you go in and you buy one. It's gonna take. We're gonna put it at about 90 days, depending on what gun you get. It may be 60,
Okay.
it may be 90, but keep in mind, like these guns aren't just sitting on a shelf or shit out of the back of a pickup truck, right? Like they're put together, they're QC'd, they're hand tuned. It takes a while to get the guy the right gun. And and again, we're gonna test it too, because I'm not gonna send you some gun that just sucks, right? Or that
Good.
that some I can call the guy if you said, hey man, like I'm having issues with the gun, I'm gonna pull that gun up and look at exactly who built it, who QC'd it, and who tested it. And I'm calling all three of them, going, hey man, what did you guys do? What did we learn here? Right? It does take time to produce a masterpiece.
Well, that
And we're
makes
not,
sense.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to put, and I don't mean this in hyperbole, we are chasing that Atlas and masterpiece class gun
Mm.
right at the price point we're at. Right. So it's going to take me time to build that gun and get it to you.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. I wanted to mention that because there are lots I'm sure you've dealt with customers, but you know, at a gun that price, at the handcraftedness, like you're not going to be able to buy it and have it at your FFL a week later. It takes time. It's actually being built for you, correct? Like you're not just buying and it's on a shelf. It's being built probably when you order it. So it takes time. And I
Correct.
know some people feel like we're so used to the Amazon era where I can order something from Amazon and have it here the next day. But does that happen a lot, or are people pretty understanding about the fact that it's going to take some time?
It depends. Your your big shops are better about it. Your individual customers
Yeah.
are pretty good about it too, right? Like I would say the individual customer that knows what a 2311 is and is making that purchase, he's done his research. He knows exactly what he's buying and what he's trying, and he is a guy that knows his guns. Those in between stores, that's where we run into the oh my God, it's going to take me 90 days to get my shipment of 10 guns. Well, yeah, man, it's going to take me a little bit to build them. And that brings us to, we were talking before the show, we are aggressively pursuing a East Coast factory, in addition to the Dayton factory, where we will have 2 points of origin, where the guns are built, and be able to stay. I would love for us to never surpass 90 days on a gun. Right. That would be my goal in the 10 years, as long as the company will have me, that from the time you order your gun, within 90 days, you will have your gun, whether that's an elite or a base compact gun.
I mean, that makes sense because you're going to sacrifice. I mean, if you're going to speed up the process, typically you have to, I don't want to say cut corners, but that's where the QC could drop. I mean, and at the end of the day, to build something that's handcrafted is going to take time. So, I mean, I get it. I think some
Yeah.
people, like I said, we're used to this instant gratification, but
Well, no, I was going to say you're right, because it's either, most people, consumers, want the brunt of that to be carried by the manufacturer. So it's like, okay, cool. OA is going to have to invest multiple millions of dollars in stock, basically buy all these guns, build them all, and roll. And I'm sure at some point the goal is, hey, we'd love to have 5 on the shelf ready to ship out. Let's start small, and then maybe 10 on the shelf one day. But every gun in a box ready to ship out is money they've already spent. So it's like,
Right.
you got to pick and choose your battles. I mean, if the money wasn't an issue and you could just keep building them, yeah, the goal would be to have 1,000 in stock at all times. It's just not realistic, with the money. But I think I agree with both of you guys. People want them quick, but at the same time, like, you're paying for quality. I don't want to bring up another company, but it's almost like the custom shop at Kimber. It's like, if you order from Kimber, that's the first one that comes to mind. If you order from them, they're going to build everything, not saying they're hand fitted or custom, but they're going to build that dude for you as you order it. Whereas
Right.
if you buy a Glock 19, I mean, shoot, they got thousands on tens of thousands just sitting in boxes waiting. So
Sure.
yeah, I like it because it's quality, it's craftsmanship, but it's also art. I mean, it really is.
It is art, and it is, when you build a team, you build a team of people that are better than you. Right. So, like, when I walk into the shop and I go down to the build room, we actually moved, one of our machinists wanted to go to the build room, Big James, one of the best machinists I've ever met in my life, and he's in the build room, and he will sit there and he'll say, "Hey, Paul, like, look, this one's unsat. Look at this line." And I'm like staring at him, like, "Bro, I don't see what you're seeing." He's like, "It's there, it's wrong." And I'm like, "Hey, man, like, if send it back through. If you don't like it, trash it, and we'll do the next one." And so you have all these R&D costs, you have all these build costs, and then you have stores that get their guns in, and they'll drag their feet for, God, I think we've got one right now, and you know who you are, 60 days late
Yeah.
on a bill. And it's like, that is money that I can't then go buy the next guy's gun with,
right.
right? Like, I can't go buy the metal to do it. That's money I need to pay the electrical bill. Hell, that's money I need to make payroll. And so it's not, I know the end user's like, "Hey, my gun, my gun, my gun." It's not always us, right? Like, it's shipping, it's ATF. ATF is gay. They get in the way of a lot of stuff. There are big contracts out there, with what we call distributors or super suppliers. There are law enforcement contracts. There are other contracts we can't talk about. And so, like, you're having to shuffle all this around. And by the way, government entities aren't the best at paying their bills on time.
Nope.
Nope.
Oh, on
Right.
time, that's like 120 days.
Yeah.
Hey, you
Right.
better pay those,
And
you
you're
better pay
like,
those taxes on time. You better pay your taxes on time now.
Better.
I know. And so, we turn around to our big investor and like, "Hey, man, like, maybe borrow another 100 grand." And he's like, all right, when am I going to get my money back? As soon as they pay.
Yeah.
Um, the margins, the reason that our gun, it still costs the same as it does to make any 2011 style gun out there, or double stack 1911 style gun out there. We took the meat out of our end of it, so we don't have the margins in there. That's why when we talk to stores or distributors and they're like, oh, I need this many points, and I'm like, hey man, the reason I'm $1,000 less, or hell, let's be honest, $2,000 to $3,000 less than them, is because I took it out of our end. Um, and that's where that money comes from. And I think sometimes end users and even stores don't realize there's checkers and chess in this.
Yeah. Well, what I think is great though is hearing, even though you guys have been in business for 5-ish years or more, it's still nice to hear. I know it's scary as hell and sometimes, but it's still nice to see that this is the American dream, like growing before your eyes. It's, you know, you guys are sold out of a lot of things, and that's great right now. And it's like I always complain in the business I'm in. I would rather complain about being too busy than not busy at all. But it,
100%.
but at the same time, you know, you're still small enough that if Adam buys a 2311 from you and buys an Elite from you, his money is earmarked for that gun, and it's
Yes.
not just going into the machine because you've already got money in the bank from Blue Billion other sales that's handling the processing of that gun because it's already been paid for, you know, 3 batches ago. So it's good to see that you're growing that way, and that, you know, you're going through, as a small business, like you're going through the problems that heck everybody else in their daily life go through. I mean,
Right.
we go to work, we put 40 hours in, and when you come home, you know, you cross your fingers and you hope that you got enough money in the paycheck to offset the money that's in the mailbox asking for payment. Like that's what it is. I mean, you're a
You're
little more than that, but it's nice to see that people are still pursuing that dream.
right. Commerce is commerce, man. And you're 1000% right. As we talk through this and we grind through it, your money goes to your gun. The little bit of money that would otherwise go to Miss Ross's bank account goes back into the company to R&D, the next best thing for,
Yep.
what we already have a pattern, so we'll say the next SHOT Show release. um that's how it works. And I was talking to a good friend of mine last night, and he's like, hey, he's starting his business, and you talk to all these dudes that are starting their businesses, and what a great time under the new administration to be trying to run a business or start a business. We walked into SHOT Show, man. Um, I leveled success for SHOT Show as, if we make 750 sales on this particular week, that would be success, right? Like we would pay SHOT Show bills, we would pay for all the guns, we'd have a little bit to put into R&D, but we walked out with about 10 times that many guns sold,
Oh, wow.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
right? And so you're seeing, yeah, again, I'm no stranger to controversy. So you're seeing the Trump effect come in, where people, especially these smaller stores, and the consumers are like, hey, I've got money to spend on guns now because I'm more excited about the economy. I'm more excited about what's going to happen with my Second Amendment rights. Um, Everybody's just living a better life, or at least is anticipating living a better life. Um, and it's a damn good time to be in firearms.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. So go back to the SHOT Show. I mean, we stopped at your booth. We got to hold the guns. We got to play around with them, and they're awesome. But from a consumer standpoint, I'm a guy that wants to buy a double stack 1911. There's a lot of competition right now, and it's growing daily. I'm a believer competition makes everyone better, right? But at this point, why should someone buy a 2311 over anyone else out there?
For three reasons, right? First and foremost, my gun is better. right? And that's a very biased thing to say, but I stand by it, right? Like I 1000% believe in our team and I believe in our product. And I don't, if we're going to make a sale, I'm not going to say on the gun. I'm going to tell you to go shoot the gun. The gun will sell itself, right? It is, we moved this year, right before SHOT Show, we moved to where we'd gone away from MIM parts and our triggers, our hammers, and our sears were all in house,
Oh,
right? Like, so yes, you now have a choice in a 4.5 pound LE duty rated trigger or this other trigger that comes in at about 3 pounds. Um, and if you are an LE guy and you decide like, hey man, I'm going to buy a gun, I'm going to put both triggers in the bag because you may in your off time be like, I'm going to go compete and I need a lighter trigger. I'm going to put the 4 major optic plates in your bag. And depending on what model you got, you're going to have 5 magazines in there. The other thing that I absolutely love about these guns, um, and we'll go through it right here
I love
if
show and
we
tell.
can. Yeah, a little show and tell. So we do get a lot of comments where they're like, hey, the grips are ugly with the magazine well. Well, they're functional because you can unscrew the plus, which gives you 2 more rounds, and put on the compact for the 15 round. Or you're like, right, as your EDC, and then you're like, hey man, I'm going to, for today, I'm going to go compete or I'm going to go burn it down at the range, and you just change out your mag well again. It's literally a screw. So we just give the, I believe we give the consumer more options than any other company out there does.
That's awesome. So
yeah,
you
I was
mentioned
looking
LE.
because
Oh,
I
good.
kind of want to be spicy here. I kind of want to ask it and see what we do, see what happens. We'll throw the shit against the wall and see what sticks. So I'm looking on your website right now, and I'm looking at the 2311 Pro. It's a full size, got slide serrations and the slide cuts in the top, slides ported. Um, Manufacturer price is available soon right now, but it's 25.99.
Yeah.
You got some guys down in Texas that just dropped a double stack 1911, and theirs uses a Glock mag, and you guys are about the same, if not $100 difference. But you just said 5 mags, is that right? On that one, you
Mm-hmm.
get 5, and you get optic plates, and you get a couple other things. I mean, I, I'm seeing things, and I'm trying to figure out what your thoughts are. Like, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I'm torn between that one and this one," you know,
Oh, simple,
what's
simple, easy answer all day long. So you already hit on, you're going to get all the optics plates in your bag. You're going to get your magazines in the bag instead of having to go buy 4 more. First off, the particular gun you're talking about doesn't even come with an optics plate. You have to buy that separately. Ours comes with 4 in the bag. You're going to have to go buy 4 more magazines at $150 a pop just to now have what we have in our bag. And you're comparing my top of the line gun to their bottom of the line gun in price. So I'm absolutely crushing them in price because my bottom of the line gun is a solid $2,000 cheaper than theirs.
yeah, yeah, and again, you know, I'm always the proponent that we need more firearm builders, and we need more companies in America, and we need, for
Sure.
the end consumer, more guns is not a bad thing. More guns is a good thing. But when you look at it and you say it that way, I start looking at it and it's like, well, you know, it's they've done a great job marketing, they've done a great job doing everything they're doing, but it's like, man, I would think, you know, for what you're saying with them, that's their bottom of the line gun, and there are guns that are their price or less that can perform as well or better. So I just think that's really interesting.
I do too. I think, and now we're getting into some kind of industry inside quarrels, right? Like there is no love lost between us and Staccato. Like let's throw that out there. There are I wish them the best luck in the world, but only for the same reason you hope your neighbor that you can't stand sells their house at a good price, right?
Yeah.
Because it helps my company, it helps my team. I would love, I've said this once and I'll say it a million times. I would love for any double stack 2011 company to take their three best shooters and put them against my three best shooters head to head. And I guarantee you my gun will win every fucking time.
Ooh,
Dude, that's a
I
sales
like
pitch.
that. I like it when the show
We
gets
can't put that
spicy.
one on daytime TV, but by God, we can beep a couple things.
I'll put a mortgage payment on the line for that one.
Let's go, dude.
Wow. Wow.
Paul, I
That's
think
awesome.
that's
Man.
I think that's a bit. I think that's brave of you. And I also like. I think it's really cool that you are so confident in your product to stand behind it like that. I think that the industry is, touching all the way back to what Adam said. The Amazon, we're in the Amazon industry. Everybody wants everything right freaking now.
Mhm.
And the fact that you can, how do I put this? There's all these legacy brands in the, not just 2011s or 2311s, but brands all across the firearms industry. They're legacy brands that brought a technology or an innovation maybe to market first, and they live on that for a long time. And then the little guy comes along, and you're going to provide a higher quality product at a lesser price, but you got to wait a little bit of time. Like all Ferraris used to be handmade. If you wrecked your Ferrari, you couldn't just pull the fenders off of another Ferrari and put it on yours because it was hand fit to that car. And people would wait for quality like that. So I think it's cool. I think it's cool in an industry that's dominated by really huge corporations to see a little guy out there still building some of the best stuff on the market at the best price. So congrats on that.
I appreciate it, man. And, I think when we talk about timelines, like our timelines are still under anybody in competition's timelines, right? If you go out and you order, and we'll start from the bottom. So let's say you order a 2011 out of Staccato. They're going to be roughly maybe just a little bit longer than we are. If you are going to order an Atlas or a Masterpiece, it's going to take you a long time to get that gun, a lot longer than it's going to take you to get ours. And the truth is, brother, Staccato, homie, they're in the rear view, right? I'm chasing down Atlas and trying to beat them. That's my competition, not the 2011 fanboys that are never going to evolve, but the next step. I want the next best gun, and in 5 years, I want us to be at the top of the mountain.
I love that. And I do want you to take a minute to talk about that because, no good deed is left unsaid. So I think that you're a former retired team guy.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the team at OA and how that team is able to, you know, be cohesive and put out the stuff you're doing. Let's hear about the team you guys have assembled over there at OA.
Man, I have a phenomenal team, right? Like one of the things that my predecessors did really well before me was recruit. Um, our machinists are top notch. Our build room are top notch. If you come in and you've got to invest in your people, right? Like that's one of my biggest things. So if you come in as an entry level guy and you're back there on the bandsaw watching blocks get cut and you're like, hey man, I'm really interested in doing build. I'll send you to the armorer's course. I'll send you out to a gunsmithing course and bring you back. We had a dude, matter of fact, he is our lead in the build room, Francisco. Francisco started, in the early days, sweeping floors, watching blocks get chopped. We helped him cover a good piece of his gunsmithing school, and he has worked himself into, he is now the lead builder in the build room.
Wow.
So you've got to invest in your team. You've got to believe in your team, and you got to be honest with them, even when it fucking hurts.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey guys, here's what we're doing. Here's the long-term plan, and here's the short-term plan. And the long-term plan is we're going to be at the top of the mountain, and we're going to do it by securing these contracts. The short-term plan is your quality has to improve, and we have to make X number of guns every month to push out. And when the team has talks like that, and you bring in true leaders, right? So you're talking, I've got guys that were team guys working for the company. I've got guys that are school trained machinists and armorers that were formerly team guys. I've got armors that worked at some of the SMUs coming in and helping. And then you've got guys who, you're a good dude. You share our values of faith, family, and freedom. And I'm going to find a spot for you, not because I have one, but because you have the attributes that I need.
That's important.
It's huge. And
That's
then, Paul, you also mentioned something about earlier about law enforcement, and I'm curious about that. So, how many departments roughly have approved your? Because that's a huge deal. We talk about military contracts, but I'm interested in law enforcement officer. How many departments have approved your weapon?
So I don't have it in front of me, but we're up significantly from where we were a year ago. We've got, yeah, definitely in the southeast. We've got a handful. Midwest is really picked up lately, and even Texas and Illinois, we've got some officers now carrying our guns. Um,
I think it's
so
great.
it's wild, right? Because now you've got to step back and say, hey man, like I need that thing to, like, it's got to be flawless. Um, because you don't know if serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to Mike to play on the range, or if it's going to Jim, and he's going to use that as his service gun, right? Because they're produced and they're allocated. So
Right.
every gun has to be perfect. Uh, I'll be damned if we're going to sit back and say, send out a gun that somebody could lose their life because it wasn't functioning properly.
Yeah. That's
So, also with that, my next question, because I'm curious on this, you guys are a newer company with a newer gun. How many holster companies out there right now? If I want to get your gun, who's make? Obviously, there's one-offs and custom built holsters, but when we talk about duty holsters, level 2, level 3 retention holsters,
Mm-hmm.
who's making those for you guys?
So Safari Land has a level 3 holster out.
Okay.
Um, a company called KMFJ. Larry's company. He was former team guy I knew. They make a level 3 holster. Actually, a lot of our guys really like their holster. U.S. Duty Gear has prototyped theirs, and it's being run right now through the gauntlet. And then after that, yeah, I mean,
The custom guys. Yeah.
G Code, Alien Gear, Tack Rig makes a pretty phenomenal holster. And then I personally run Smith Concealment on mine. They make a not just a good product, but a sexy product.
Nice. So
yeah.
it's safe to say there's plenty of options out there for holster wise.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes that's issues. A new gun comes out, and then it's like, well, I need a holster for it. And yes, you can find the one-offs, but getting those duty holsters, that's a big one. That's awesome to hear that you got all the big boys out there playing.
Yeah, I mean it's anybody that does business and developing a holster with Safari Land knows that they don't do it quickly, but they
Right.
do it correctly. They put a lot of time and effort and thought into making sure their product is right. And so yeah, it is frustrating when you started this over a year ago, but that end product from Safariland, it's pretty phenomenal. And same thing with KMFJ. Like I've known Larry for almost my whole lifetime. The dude I love him like a brother, but sometimes like a brother, you just want to beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Um, right. But they do the same thing. They took a long time to develop a really freaking good product.
Yeah, that's cool, and it's almost like a rite of passage. I mean, I could imagine if I wanted to set up and just start building pistols. I don't care if they're, you know, 22, semi-autos, whatever. You just name it. Striker fire, hammer fire, whatever, dual action, single action. It's a rite of passage if Safari Land actually makes your holster. Like that's
Yeah.
people don't think about that very much, but it's a big deal. I mean, they have a very deep catalog of products, but at the same time, like that's got to be a high five moment when Safari Land's like, yeah, we'll make your holster. We agree. Like, we like the gun. We need to make it. We think it's going to move. Like, that's a big deal.
It is, man, and there is no shortage of phenomenal dudes out there in the industry, right? Like, so you have Safari Land making holsters. I long ago, back when I was in my army days, I shot competitively with Seekins rifle, and Matty Nelson, who's
We
over
love
at
Matty
Seekins, is a
Nelson.
Oh, we
very
love
That's
Maddie.
our boy.
yeah. So Maddie's a very, very close friend of mine. And like when I got tapped for this job, that was the first phone call I'd made was, hey, Maddie, grab Glenn. I'm bringing the team out to see you. And we're going to sit down and hash through what right looks like. Um, and so you have that. You have out in Wilmington, North Carolina, you have Savage Tactical. A guy named Kevin Ullman runs that place out there. And I know they make clothes, but they also know what the fuck they're doing and what they're talking
Yeah.
about when it comes to running a business and supplying your customer with what they want. The G Code holsters, Alien Gear holsters have reached out, and it's now these holster companies that everybody knows, or these clothing companies that everybody within the 2A movement knows, going, hey man, like we want some of what you have, and you're like, shit, I've only got 24 hours in a day, right?
Yeah.
But it is phenomenal, not just to watch the company grow, but to watch those dudes that signed on as employees of the company 3 years ago, not knowing if this was going to last 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years, to have vindication of what their product has done and what their hard work and sweat has done.
Yeah, they're making a difference. They are definitely making a difference.
Paul, I want to ask because I mean, I like all kinds of guns, but I'm definitely a SIG fan. And so like your product feeding off the 320 mags is like that's freaking cool. And looking at it, and it may just be, in the eye of the beholder, but it looks like it does take some other design cues from Sig Sauer. And I guess I want to know, is that purposeful? Is it supposed to be a mix of a 320 and a 226 and a 1911 all kind of had a baby? Because what I see is like the coolest 226 ever made, really.
Yeah, so you can't run a SIG magazine without a SIG mag release, right?
Right.
Like that's
Right.
let's just start there from the bottom moving up. So when we go through the 8 cycles of function in any gun, right? One of them's ejecting. Well, brother, if you're going to run that magazine and it's going to feed into that ramp and lock in, it's got to eject. So those are SIG ejectors in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the rest of it, we do have friends over there. We do talk to them regularly. They are a very good company, and it's one of those companies where you're like, man, I really don't want to like them, but if you can't get along with the folks at SIG, it's a you problem, not a them problem, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a handful of takeaways and there are a handful of adaptions that came in to make it actually work the way it does.
Fair. Thank you.
I was going to say that's a really cool backstory on that, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, using the mags, might as well use the ejector, and heck, if you're using the ejector, let's just make the extractor work the same. Like, it's simplistic, but it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, something else I want to ask you about, honestly, is when you and I talked online through email when you were coming on. I was reading, you sent me over a little bit, and what jumped out at me is how involved and passionate you guys are about the youth, as far as giving back in whatever way you can, whether it be, through, school. God, I can't say that. I got to think of it differently. Shooting teams in the school,
Yep.
um, and all the other charity work again, talk about that for a minute.
We do a lot, and sometimes it's a lot to kind of sit down and grapple with. But as far as there's a Christian school that has a shooting team, and no, they don't shoot pistols. They do rifle, shotgun, and archery. But as avid believers in the Second Amendment, we sponsor that team. And I would say, any Christian school out there that has a shooting team, shoot me an email. We will find a way to sponsor you.
Awesome.
Our first value is faith. We're absolutely a faith-based company. I know my tongue is a little salty sometimes, but the Lord forgives, right?
Yeah.
We also do youth rodeo. So I grew up bull riding.
Right on.
I was just good enough at it to go completely broke and have to join the army.
Makes
Right.
sense.
And so we sponsor youth rodeos. We sponsor the Hondo Rodeo out in Phoenix. We sponsor professional bull riders. So that's one avenue of, this is our lifestyle. I don't just wear a cowboy hat because it's cool at the moment. I was literally out working cattle with the kids before I came in to do this.
Well, I think that any friend of Matty Nelson's has to have a cowboy hat, or he's not messing with you.
Right, like Matty is cowboy now. Like
he is.
Yeah, don't
He's the
don't
real
let
cowboy.
don't let him fool you. Like he'll take off, and I'm jealous, right? Because I'll send him a picture out here. We're in the Carolinas. We have pine trees and little soft hills, and I'm like, yep, I'm out riding today, checking fences or checking cows, and then he'll send me a picture of like this beautiful mountain snow-capped peak, and he's like, yep, doing the same, and it's like, man, fuck you.
That Hell's Canyon, Idaho is serious.
He was almost late to our podcast.
Country.
He couldn't go earlier when we had him scheduled on the podcast because he's like, nope, I'll be tending the horses then. I'll have to come in later. And I'm like, what?
Who is this guy?
And you gotta love Matty, right? So Matty and I get along same values. The value of family. When you call Matty, bro, if he is not doing something, he will answer the phone. But if he is busy, especially with the kids, he's like, hey man, I'm gonna call you tomorrow. And it doesn't matter how important you need to talk to him or how urgent it is. This is my time with the kids. You can wait till tomorrow. And I have a lot of respect for that. I have a lot of love for that.
That's a tough thing to say to people.
It is, right? Like we're not designed to tell people no, but you got to love a man that puts his family ahead of all of this.
Yeah. No,
right.
100%.
And then we sponsor, getting back to the different things that we get involved with. We are doing a gun. I don't know if you saw the announcement at SHOT Show, but we're doing a gun with Forey J. Smith, who plays Lloyd on Yellowstone.
Yep.
And it will be, the proceeds from that gun will be divided between the Children's Shriners Hospital and the Kids to Love Ranch, which is a foster care orphanage facilitation ranch to really help them, get counseling into these families and people that are new to the foster system and the kids, because that's just a rough way to grow up.
Yeah, it is.
And it's one of our tenets to take care of people that are less fortunate than we are.
Man, that's amazing.
I love the values. I love what your company stands for. Question though, when can we see you guys next? Are you guys going to be at the NRA show, the GOA Gold show coming up in August? Are we going to see you guys 2311 any of these other shows coming up?
No, so we will be, we're kind of cutting back, because everything's a little bit of a give and take. So with the big orders that have started flooding in this year, and we're thankful for everyone, but it cuts back in order for us to stay small. It cuts back on what I can push out to trade shows. Um, so we stick to like Memorial 3 gun. You have to, right? Like that's our people. That's a very, very important thing for us. So there will never be a world where we are not a part of Memorial 3 gun. And I think they're Memorial Valor now.
Yeah.
Shot Show, man, that's just the
You
show
just
that
gotta
put the
be
company
there.
on the map, and you can't walk away from that. Anything else, whether it's TriggerCon or some of these others, I mean, it's hard, right? Because now you're talking your buy group shows are in there, and that's where you really kind of make your money is with the various buy groups. Um, all these things, and there's only so much time out there to produce quality products.
Yeah.
If you even if you don't do the booth, which you said, you guys, those are your two shows this year. The Goals event, the Gun Owners of America, it's the Goals and Advocacy Leadership Summit. So it's kind of like a panel where they have a whole bunch of speakers talking about gun rights, but also they have a miniature shot show. It's
Mm-hmm.
small. It's in Knoxville, so it's not too far. So even if you don't have a booth, man, if y'all have the time, you should ride up and at least just wear the shirt and walk down the aisles. It's consumers, people that can buy the products. It's actual consumers, not just dealers only. And it's just a Friday, Saturday show, so it's not too big a deal.
No, like we're all about that, man. And it may be just because we don't have a booth at a show, or I say, hey, like from my vantage point, we're not doing a show as we're not doing a booth at a show.
Right.
The But for all the shows, whether it's NRA, goals, yeah, man, there's going to
Somebody
be
will be
two to
there.
three dudes walking around,
Hell yeah.
engaging with customers. Um, Whether they have this T-shirt on or one of the polos, or who knows what they're doing, but it's a good time to talk to individual consumers at the level we care about, right? And say, hey man, what do you want to see in the next gun?
Right.
Yeah.
And you get good feedback. You got dudes who are, well, I want to see a steel frame pistol, and hey man, maybe that's coming out, at next shot show. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but maybe
You're
it
not gonna
is.
tell anybody yet.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Maybe, right. But that's when you're interacting with those with your actual customer base. That's where you start learning what people want.
Yeah.
Um, and the things they do and don't like, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, because again, Matt's like, I don't like the metal grip, it's too rough. And then Adam and Mike are like, oh, I absolutely love it. And then Paul's over there in the corner is like, well, I don't like the mag wells, but I don't understand that they're modular, and that's the reason they are the way they are.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense
fair.
though. That makes perfect sense. I did have a question that's actually not even a question anymore, because after talking with you about it, I'll say what I was going to ask. And I was going to say, is there in any realm do you think OA Defense would come out with, an economical or entry level line? But I mean, it's very apparent to me that, like you said, you guys are looking at stuff in the rear view and always going forward. So almost creating an economic version that's not in the OA vocabulary or the tooling at the shop. So it's almost like that's almost creating a second company in itself. So in short, like,
Oh
yeah, we'd
man,
love to, but no, we can't. I mean, it's
well, they're economic, right? When you say, what do I get for $2,000? We've already spelled that out between the bag and the magazines and everything. So there's a very economic. The only thing you need when your gun shows up is a freaking box of 50 rounds. Otherwise, you got everything you need. It's going to come with the co-witness front sights in there. So moving forward, are the guns going to become a little bit different, a little more extreme? Yeah, man, because we're chasing, we're trying to
Pushing the
climb up
envelope.
yeah. And you talk about, back when STI was STI, what was that, 10 years ago?
Yeah, wow.
Um,
Getting pretty close to
yeah,
anyway.
give or take. Who know, they're old. Um, how long ago did Atlas come out? Right? It's been a long time, and they have a great product. I'm trying to do what they did in 5 years.
Yeah, but
Uh,
I love that because I'm a very goal oriented, speaking
yeah,
into action person. I think all three of us are. So it's, do you really want to hit that goal? Absolutely, you do. But, aim small, miss small. So
sure,
if you have to aim like you're overtaking somebody, a giant in 5 years, it's a tall mountain to climb. And if you do it, it's worth praise. But if you get 75% there, that's a 75% improvement over where you're at now.
sure. I mean, if you got, let's say we got 85% of the way into being as good as an Atlas. All right. Is that Atlas still $5,000 better than my gun? No,
No.
of course not. It's not $5,000 better now. Um, but as a business owner, right? You're either growing or you're dying. There is no middle ground for a
Right.
business, right? You're either pushing forward or you're losing value.
Yeah. Every minute you're not making money, you're losing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just the nature of the beast. If you have nothing to do at the shop that day, I mean, you think, okay, well, cool, we're not making any money. The bank account will stay the same, but not actually. You've got utilities, you've got employees, you've got insurance to pay, you've got workers' comp, you've got, building insurance, you've got materials that you got to pay. Like, yeah, if you're not shipping something out the door or building that house or,
Right.
growing those vegetables as a farmer, whatever it is, if you're not doing something, you're losing money.
Yeah.
And can you imagine a world, right? Like the truth of the matter is that John Browning was the last greatest American gun innovator, right? I think that's something we can all agree on across the board. Imagine if we could push competition so ferociously that whether it was, and I hope it would be us, but it could very well be somebody else, that is the reason they spawn the next great American gun, with its own unique properties and possibilities. It's to be like it's just a cool time to be in the industry.
It is, and it's amazing when you say that with Browning. I look at Browning, and I always talk about like the Mount Rushmore of the firearms on the U.S. side, and like Browning's up there.
Absolutely.
Even though you got Eugene Stoner up there, it still just blows my mind that he came out with that design so long ago without the technology we have now, and there's been some improvements upon it, but at the same time nothing has been invented that overtakes it. And it just shows that Browning, you know Stoner, heck, even the Russian dude Kalashnikov, these guys came
Yeah.
out, they were born way before their time, and thank goodness in a lot of those cases, because they helped liberate or free. But at the same
Helped
time,
end
it
some
just blows.
wars.
Yeah, it just blows my mind that it's like, really, we can't do much better. And I love when I see people like you guys coming out and you know constantly trying to improve. And there's lots of companies that do it, but it's just always nice to see it
Yeah.
and to see the drive.
The best thing about being an American is that Americans have always been great innovators. Um,
Mm.
we don't always get shit right, but we're always great innovators. And I think that's where, as we turn to this world where we'll see what Cash Patel does with the ATF. We'll
Yep.
see if the NFA goes away. But as we move into this world where, right, where money is circulating and innovation is being pushed to the forefront, what's going to happen next? It's we we pride ourselves on being American innovation for the modern patriot. But that doesn't mean that there's any company out there that we wouldn't help. Right? Like there's no world where we're going to stop somebody from being innovative or awesome. As long as you do it ethically in the right way.
I think so. And I think, if it's not the firearms, the firearms themselves pushing the other firearms to be better, then you get the people in the same space, but a little different. You get the optics companies. Just looking at how optics have changed the game,
Yeah.
on a rifle standpoint with the thermal and the night vision and the fusion and all that, it almost forces the rifles to become better. But now on the pistol side, even 10 years ago, red dot pistol sights
Weren't a thing.
I mean, they were popular, but they weren't super huge. And even now, there are still people that are like, well, I guess I'll adjust, and I guess I'll get with the times and grab a red dot. But what that red dot did was it changed the game, and people are better at acquiring their targets. They're better at their follow-up shots. They're better at a lot of things. So now the next innovation has to be to the gun. How do you keep it flatter shooting so that the optics stays on,
Sure.
the sight picture stays on target, and they push each other. And I think it's great. We need more innovation.
No, I completely agree, and I love I love these conversations because it's not just how this company started, but it's how so many great companies start. It's literally four dudes sitting around. In my mind, they're drinking bourbon. Reality is they're probably drinking some weird beer.
Nowadays,
Whiskey.
Yeah,
I'm a
but
whiskey dude.
they're drawing out their little plan on a napkin, and that's how OA started. That's how dang on Bezos started Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Like these dudes just with garage. Hell, you want to talk about one of the premier leaders in firearms? Seekins Precision. Glenn Seekins started that place in
In
his
the garage.
Garage. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
remember hearing.
yeah,
Maddie was telling us is like we had to move some old hot rod out of the garage every time we wanted to, spin up the CNC, and it was like, oh gosh.
yeah, and you just talk about some great red-blooded Americans following their dream, and hell, even if firearms isn't your passion, whether it's cars or something, just go out there and try to make the world a little bit better with your own brand of badassery.
Amen. Paul, it's pretty easy to see that the OA has they've got their finger on the pulse of innovation, also market trends. Do you see the 2311 being just the one platform that you guys hold on to and perfect, or is there talk or thought in the company already about new platforms, a rifle, a single stack? Is what's next for OA?
I think that OA will forever stay with pistols, right? It, and I can only speak for what would be my tenure here,
Right.
right? In my tenure, we will not pursue rifles or shotguns. But will the 2311 be the only pistol we make? Oh,
Who knows?
All right,
I love
I'll
it.
take that as an
love it.
answer. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because it's, when you start getting too much, I mean, you either have to be the company of a certain size where you can have experts and engineers in all those departments, because nobody in this industry can afford to be the jack of all trades but master of none, because
mhm.
you got to make sure each time that trigger pulls, it goes boom and it goes in the right direction. And it, there's no there's no issues other than that. You last thing anybody in this industry needs is an issue. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean,
respect it.
go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. I was going to say I definitely see that point, but I do also see the point of some of these smaller boutique companies that take such pride and care in producing a really high quality product that there could be a lot of excitement when they decide to do something different because people know that they're going to execute at that level, you know?
Sure, and I think a lot of people don't know, but OA Defense is one of the large partners in Laugo USA.
Okay.
That's why you always see the Laugo alien at our booth or a shared booth. But let's be honest, you're not going to get a better race gun than the alien. Um, but when we talk about you're moving on to the next series of guns, the current gun has to be perfect
Mm.
at all times. It is the flagship model. Um, and there's so much responsibility that comes. Yes, racing guns is fun, competing is fun, but there's a lot of officers out there right now and a lot of service members who are carrying these guns. Um, and you have to take that serious. You
Yeah.
have to put in the breadth of honesty and self-reflection that takes. So I have a very simple rule in everything we do. If we did it great, that's cool. We don't need to talk about it. What we're going to talk about is how to be better. Right? We're not going to pound our chest and tell you that it's the best gun ever, although it is. But we are going to sit down and talk about how do we make it better? How can we be a little bit flatter? How can we, one of the big things that we get back is cycling, and if you're not holding the gun like a man, and you're lip wristing that gun, it won't cycle correctly. How do you educate?
Why is that? Can you explain that? Why is that? I'm
Buffer.
interested in that.
Yeah, buffer.
You made a
So
as
as it
spring out of
cycles
your
through,
wrist.
yeah, as it cycles through, it's got to hold still to actually slide on the buffer and come back forward and complete the 8 functions. If you are moving with it because you're limp wristing, then you're essentially getting in the way of the slide cycle, and that's not just our gun, right?
Yeah,
That's going to
a
be
lot of
any
guns.
20. Yeah, that's any 2011 or double stack 1911 style gun across the board. But if you don't know that or you're not educated on that, more importantly, if you're too proud to consider that or have somebody tell you that, it's probably not the gun for you. Um, it's I also tell people, like, if you're just coming to buy a gun that's going to be pretty and put in your safe, please don't buy mine. If you're looking for a gun that you're gonna wreck and work the shit out of, and it is the absolute workhorse of your lineup, then buy my gun. But we're not here to make safe queens.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I love that. So, Paul, we heard about OA Defense. We've heard about the 2311. Now we're at the time of the podcast where we want to find out a little bit about you. So, question, we don't usually let you know prior, but this is going to be a gun guy Paul question. And Matt, take it away.
So I really like to do this part of the show. And again, like Adam said, it's not a question that's unique to us. We stole it from somebody else, but we like to try and get everybody in on this. As gun guys, we kind of judge each other based on our personal tastes. And obviously you have a taste for OA, but what else does Paul like? So we want to know. NFA doesn't matter. The cost of ammo doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to be something you own. But if you could only have 5 guns in your collection for the rest of your life, it's not the zombie apocalypse, but you've got to cover all your styles of shooting you like to do. What are the 5 guns that you're taking, Paul?
All right. obviously I'm going to take a 2311.
All right.
So there's one. Okay. I'm going to take an SP10.
Okay.
Oh,
Um, um, I'm going to take a Geisley Super Duty.
Solid.
Yep, solid gun. I'm going to take any of the Havoc, probably a Pro Hunter 2, but any of the Havoc bolt action guns to work off. And then I am always going to stick with my Benelli because, when you grow up on the Mississippi River, you grow up duck hunting, and that's what
yeah.
life's about.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a really well-rounded selection. A lot of guys forget about shotguns, and we're like, oh yeah, so and so hates shotguns. They're like, oh no, but pretty
he
well
killed
rounded.
it.
Good choices.
Adam, you just over there muted away, chit-chatting.
I keep doing that. It's a bad habit I do. So, yeah, I know. That's what the magic of editing, though. So, Paul, we really do appreciate you having you on the show and OA Defense. So, before we get out of here, where can they find you guys? Where's your website? Plug yourself.
All right. You can find us at oadefense.com. Most of your local gun stores that carry this style platform or this price point will have us. And if not, man, just look us up on the website, www.oadefense.com. I've got a phenomenal customer service rep in Mac who is literally standing by 24/7 to get back to you, or hit us on the gram. Just don't be surprised if it's actually me or Dave or somebody that responds to you and says, "Hey man, what do you want?"
They answer the
We'll get you to the
messages. Yeah.
dealer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like we stay on top of that, and I don't know if people realize it, but we do absolutely value the comments. Even the 2011 fanboys that get on there and just troll, but it's we watch every single comment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, man, we greatly appreciate you having on the show. Guys, if you watch this far in the show, make sure you are subscribed, leave a comment. Any questions you have about 2311s, go ahead and put in the comment section. Go hit them over on Instagram, but really appreciate it. Like I always say, stay dangerous, carry a weapon. We'll talk to you soon.